What's up, cool people? I'm Matt Conroy. Welcome back to some more Bible reading. Alrighty, so here we go. Genesis chapter 50. Finally wrapping things up here. And I think this is where we're finally going to get some more information on, what happens after the famine that's been going on in Egypt and how things carry on from there. So anyway, let's just hop right into this. Joseph threw himself on his father and wept over him and kissed him. This is because his father had just died. Then Joseph told the physicians who served him to embalm his father's body. So Jacob was embalmed. The embalming process took the usual 40 days, and the Egyptians mourned his death for 70 days. I'm wondering if the embalming would have been done through sort of Egyptian practices, because, we all know the Egyptians were well known for their embalming practices, preserving their pharaohs especially. But anyway, Jacob, footnote just says Israel, because, again, at this point in the Bible, those are sort of interchangeable because of Jacob getting renamed. But anyway, so I assume Jacob was embalmed partially to, part of the reason for that was to help preserve his body so that it could be transported back to Canaan, to the burial ground of his ancestors. So anyway, moving along. Verse 4. When the period of mourning was over, Joseph approached Pharaoh's advisors and said, "Please do me this favor and speak to Pharaoh on my behalf. Tell him that my father made me swear an oath. He said to me, 'Listen, I am about to die. Take my body back to the land of Canaan and bury me in the tomb I prepared for myself. So please allow me to go and bury my father. After his burial, I will return here without delay.'" I unintentionally added the word "here," but I think that's implied. So, yeah, I think that follows from my reasoning at the previous verses. Jacob's body was preserved so that he could be taken to Canaan and have his body properly buried there, instead of, having it deteriorate before it could make it to that tomb. Okay, moving on, verse 6. Pharaoh agreed to Joseph's request. "Go and bury your father as he made you promise," he said. So Joseph went up to bury his father. He was accompanied by all of Pharaoh's officials, all the senior members of Pharaoh's household, and all the senior officers of Egypt. Joseph also took his entire household and his brothers and their households. But they left their little children and flocks and herds in the land of Goshen. A great number of chariots and charioteers accompanied Joseph. Okay. So, it's kind of understandable that all the other brothers would want to go with Joseph to bury their father. So, I think just to help ensure safe travel, as well as possibly expedite the trip, was, the reason for all the other officers going. Because otherwise, that really doesn't make any sense to send so many people. I guess because, Joseph was well liked and respected in Egypt, maybe some of the other Egyptian officers were going to just kind of help pay their respects as well. I don't know, I suppose either line of thinking makes sense for that. All right, verse 10. When they arrived at the threshing floor of Atad, near the Jordan River, they held a very great and solemn memorial service, with a 7-day period of mourning for Joseph's father. The local residents, the Canaanites, watched them mourning at the threshing floor of Atad. Then they renamed that place, which is near the Jordan, Abel Mizraim, for they said, "This is a place of deep mourning for these Egyptians." Curious what the footnote says there. Abel Mizraim means mourning of the Egyptians. Okay, again, rather literal name, as seems to be common. So, I guess that kind of gives a little more weight, a little more reason to the idea I said before of maybe the Egyptian officer is going to pay their respects to Jacob because of him being Joseph's father and Joseph being well respected and liked. Anyway, verse 12. So Jacob's sons did as he commanded them. They carried his body to the land of Canaan and buried him in the cave in the field of Machpelah near Mamre. This is the cave that Abraham had bought as a permanent burial site from Ephron the Hittite. Yeah, we kind of read about that in the previous chapter, certainly towards the end of it. So that's not really a whole lot of new information, just confirming that, yes, this happened. Jacob was buried with his ancestors at that same site that was kind of reserved for them. All right, so verse 14. After burying Jacob, Joseph returned to Egypt with his brothers and all who had accompanied him to his father's burial. But now that their father was dead, Joseph's brothers became fearful. "Now Joseph will show his anger and pay us back for all the wrong we did to him," they said. That's probably in reference to, when they sold Joseph off to some traders of goods. That was how Joseph wound up in Egypt in the first place, because those people then sold him to an Egyptian official, but turned out to, all be for the better of Joseph and his family, including his brothers, because of that setting him up, to help with the famine and preparations for that. So, but they're all still worried now that Joseph is going to get some sort of revenge on them for putting him through that trouble in the first place. Verse 16. So they sent this message to Joseph. "Before your father died, he instructed us to say to you, 'Please forgive your brothers for the great wrong they did to you, for their sin in treating you so cruelly. So we, the servants of the God of your father, beg you to forgive our sin.' When Joseph received the message, he broke down and wept. Then his brothers came and threw themselves down before Joseph. 'Look, we are your slaves,' they said. But Joseph replied, 'Don't be afraid of me. Am I God that I can punish you? You intended harm to me, but God intended it all for good. He brought me to this position so I could save the lives of many people. No, don't be afraid. I will continue to take care of you and your children.' So he reassured them by speaking kindly to them." So, turns out that we're kind of worried for nothing, but I just find it interesting that they felt the need to go through all this whole spiel saying that, their father gave them all these instructions when it wasn't otherwise noted that he did. I mean, it's not completely out of the question that he would have said that, but I think they're just kind of making that up, if I'm being real honest here. But anyway, Joseph had no intention of doing them any harm. He realized that he was put through all that for a reason, to help them out later on. He said this to them previously, but I guess they were still kind of worried that he wanted some kind of revenge. Anyway, okay. Almost done here. Verse 22. So Joseph and his brothers and their families continued to live in Egypt. Joseph lived to the age of 110. He lived to see He lived to see 3 generations of descendants of his son Ephraim, and he lived to see the birth of the children of Manasseh's son Machir, whom he claimed as his own, who were born on Joseph's... Okay. Slight difference in the Hebrew, if you take it word for word there, probably, but anyway. Verse 24. Soon I will die, Joseph told his brothers, but God will surely come to help you and lead you out of this land of Egypt. He will bring you back to the land he solemnly promised to give Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Then Joseph made the sons of Israel swear an oath, and he said, when God comes to help you and lead you back, you must take my bones with you. So Joseph died at the age of 110. The Egyptians embalmed him, and his body was placed in a coffin in Egypt. So, at least as of yet, his body has not quite made the same journey that his fathers did to be buried with their ancestors. I thought that was something, I mean, maybe part of that blessing that Jacob gave him in the previous chapters was just saying that, like, he, air quote, would make it back to Canaan, meaning more so that his descendants would make it back there. Again, that's kind of up for interpretation a little bit. But long story short, Joseph died in Egypt, and his body was preserved there. So it is possible that his body will still make it up to Canaan, but as of yet, I'm not recalling for sure on that. Anyway, so that about does it for that chapter, I guess. And the book of Genesis, assuming I'm remembering correctly. Yep, next chapter is Exodus 1. So, Genesis is done. Hooray, 1 book down. Only 65 more to go. Okay, well, that does it for Genesis. Make sure you keep a lookout for my Genesis abridged video, as I think I'm going to call it. In case you missed a bunch of the prior chapters in the book, and you just kind of want to get the recap of it. Or if you want to just recap all of it before we get into Exodus next time. Either way, I'd say probably a good idea to go check that video out whenever it comes up. But anyway, aside from that, you know the drill. Like, share, subscribe, click the bell. Look down in the description for info on other social media pages. And leave comments down below with any thoughts that you have. So yeah, that's it. Hope you're all doing well. Hopefully I will see you for the next video. Yeah. Exodus is next. Woohoo! But anyway, until then, stay cool, people.